object oriented programming concepts. Oops. Okay, I think all of you understood the files concept. Previous day ఇచ్చిన ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ ఎంతమంది కంప్లీట్ చేశారు? జస్ట్ హ్యాండ్ రైస్. ఈవెన్ అట్లీస్ట్ 1 or 2 ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ చేసిన హ్యాండ్ రైస్ చేయండి. If you have completed all or 1 or 2. A7, 2 members. You have completed at least 1 or 2 programs. Hand raise. Only 3 members. A7, 3 and 43. Okay, what about the remaining all? C5. Any more? Okay, all of you 4 members post your programs in so మీ 4 members మీరు రాసిన ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ నాకు వాట్సాప్ చేయండి. Okay, B9. Okay, 5 members. 91, 6. ఇంకా okay, is anybody has any doubts in that programs? So programs లో ఏదైనా డౌట్ ఉందా? సో నిన్న ఇచ్చిన ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ లో ఏదైనా డౌట్ ఉందా? Okay, the first program is write a Python program to find the longest word. So you need to find out the longest word in the longest word in the file. Okay, you need to be write a sentence or number of sentences into the file. Okay, once you read that sentences again, then you need to find out the length of the each and every word in that sentence, and you need to show the highest length word of the that related strings. అంటే మీరు ఫైల్లో రైట్ చేసిన స్ట్రింగ్స్ నుంచి మళ్ళీ ఎక్స్ట్రాక్ట్ చేస్తారు కదా స్ట్రింగ్. సో ఆ స్ట్రింగ్లోంచి ఈచ్ వర్డ్ది లెంత్ ఫైండ్ అవుట్ చేసి హైయెస్ట్ లెంత్ ఉన్న వర్డ్ని డిస్ప్లే చేయడం కానీ హైయెస్ట్ లెంత్ ఆఫ్ ద లెంత్ కానీ డిస్ప్లే చేయాలి. Okay, this is normal string program. Only the difference is you are taking the data from the file. Okay, already existing file aina teesukochu leda or you can create a file and you can use that file. And the second program is write a Python program to count the number of lines in a text file. Okay, this is easy to do. Okay, the number of times you can execute the readline function. Okay, so that whatever the number of times the readline function executes, okay, you can just count make an increment of a variable, and that variable gives the count of the lines. And next is count the frequency of the words in a file. So this you can do the count function. Okay, within the strings functions you have a function count. So using that function you can find out the count of the each and every word in the string file. Just you can take all the data of the file into a one variable and apply the count function. And next is write a program to get the file size of a plain file. This is the number of characters. Okay, you need not to give the bytes. Okay, number of characters itself it is the bytes. So just give the file size in terms of a number of characters. Okay, this is also you can just read the data from the file and find the length of that string. And write a program to write a list to a file. Okay, this you can do with the write lines. Okay, using the write lines method, you can write a list into the file. Just first create a list and just use the write lines function and you can write into the file.
I'm screen
Write a
share our
Python program to copy the contents of a file to another file. Okay, this is you'll be open the one file in the write mode and another file in the read mode. That is the existing file in the read mode and new file in the write mode. Okay, get the data from the one file and store the data into the another file. Okay, these are the 6 programs I have given.
Ma'am, third program ఒకసారి explain చేయరా?
Program. Okay, third program is count the frequency of words in a file. Okay, that is you have a count function in the strings. Just get the data from the file and apply the count function. Okay, the count function gives us the frequency, that is the number of times the word is available in that string. Write the code for that. 1 second. Okay, is all of you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Just I am creating a string variable as this is a line. Okay, and we'll create a file. .txt and the file in a write mode. Okay, then we'll write the information. Yes. So this writes the information into the file and then close the file. Now read the text from the, because we need to work with the files. And actually code strings related program, but మనం files తో work చేయాలి కాబట్టి files తో చేస్తున్నాం అంతే. The same file again open myfile.txt. Open it in the read mode. String some s1 equals to okay, now you can apply the count function. So we will check this output. Okay, count takes at least one argument. 0 is given. Okay, it requires the one by one word is to be given. Okay, 1 second. Words equal to s1 dot split s1 into the words w in words now we'll take the count of the w in the s1 and we'll display the w and the count. Okay, this is for one time and is for 2 times, a is for 1 time, line is for 1 time. Okay, is it clear? Okay, the count function gives us the frequency, but it gives the relay whatever the word you are giving, for that word it gives the frequency. So the word is I am taking from the word from the text of the file. Okay, first we will read the text into one variable, then split the text into the words. Okay, now find the frequency of the each and every word of in the S1. Okay, for W in the words, okay, S1 dot count of W, it gets the frequency of that word in the S1. Okay, then display the word and frequency. Okay, so is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, either you can create a file and you can use, or you can take the already existing file name. సో అంటే మనం క్రియేట్ చేసి ఆ ఫైల్ని యూజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు, లేదా క్రియేట్ చేయకుండా డైరెక్ట్గా మీరు ఓపెన్ చేసేటప్పుడు ఆల్రెడీ ఎగ్జిస్టింగ్ ఫైల్ ఏదన్నా ఉంటే కనుక ఆ ఫైల్ నేమ్ ఇచ్చేయచ్చు మీరు ఇక్కడ. ఓకే, ఇట్స్ నాట్ కంపల్సరీ టు క్రియేట్ ద ఫైల్. ఓకే, if anybody want, I can write down this program or I will copy paste this to the group. So group లో సో రిమైనింగ్ చేయండి. ఇంకేదైనా ప్రోగ్రామ్ డౌట్ ఉందా? Yeah. Okay, is there any program as a difficulty? So copy contents అవన్నీ వచ్చాయా? Number of lines, copy contents, size of the file, వీటిలో ఏదైనా ప్రాబ్లం ఉందా? ఏం లేదా? సమ్ ఇప్పటికిప్పుడు పోస్ట్ చేయొద్దు ఎవరు కూడా, నాకు హ్యాండ్ రైజ్ చేసిన వాళ్ళ వరకే పోస్ట్ చేయండి ప్రోగ్రామ్స్, రిమైనింగ్ వాళ్ళు పోస్ట్ చేయొద్దు వాట్సాప్లో. ఓన్లీ హ్యాండ్ రైజ్ చేసిన 4-5 మెంబర్స్ వరకే పోస్ట్ చేయండి ప్రోగ్రామ్స్. ఓకే, రిమైనింగ్ వాళ్ళు పోస్ట్ చేయొద్దు ఇంకా. ఓకే, let we will start with our today's class. Okay, object oriented programming. Okay, is all of you able to see the PPT?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Second part of the unit 4 is object oriented programming. Up to now, whatever the programming we have seen is related to the structured based. Okay, structured based programming we have seen, where we can go for the simple commands and simple structure we will follow within the program. Okay, whatever it is like C language and other language that is before to the C language, Pascal and all other. Okay, those all are called as the structured and procedural oriented languages. Okay, okay, those follow the particular procedure or particular structure of the program, and based on that structure only the program can be executed and program can be compiled. Okay, so and within the structured programming, the main concept is related to the modules. Okay, where the modules are introduced in the structured programming, so that we can divide the program into the multiple parts. Okay, so in the same way, in this object oriented programming, whenever we are dealing with the object oriented programming, the main concept is the object. Okay, the main concept is object. First we need to understand what is mean by the object, then only we can easily understand this object oriented programming structure and concepts. Okay, so first we will see what is mean by the object. Okay, I think you might be listen this word in a different other subjects also, like in the physics or in the chemistry or in other real world things. You might be observed, you might be listen this word object. Okay, this is object is something like any physical thing, any physical item or any physical appeared thing that can be called as the object. Okay, say for example a box, a pen, a book, or a table. Okay, or any liquid item or any vapored item. Okay, those all solid items, these all are considered as the objects. Okay, so whenever we coming to the programming thing, Okay, here the object is nothing but whatever the data we are storing into the system. Okay, that data is called as the object. Okay, but whenever we are seeing this data, okay, this data is considered as a one block. Okay, okay, say for example, if you are storing the data into the system, okay, will be store the data related to the particular thing. Okay, say for example, if I'm storing an data of the employee, or I can store the data of a student, or I can store the data of any particular things. Like say for example, if it is the supermarket, okay, they will store the data of the items, and they will store the data of the customers, and they will store the data of the employees that are working in the supermarket. Okay, those all the data they will store. Okay, this irrespective of only the data, okay, we have the some functionality for this data also. Okay, that is whenever you are working with the data, okay, we need to perform the some functions on that data. Okay, so we need to perform the some functions on the data. Okay, these functions are, we can also call it as operations that are performed on the data. Okay, so whenever I have the two numbers, say for example I have the data is two numbers. Okay, what are the operations we can perform on these two numbers? Okay, these are the two data items I have, two numbers. Okay, the data or the operations that we can perform on this data is, you can perform the addition, you can perform the subtraction, multiplication, division. Okay, mod operation you can perform, and you can compare the values less than, greater than or equals, and less than or equals. All these you can perform, and you can perform the, you can find out the maximum and minimum of the values. Okay. So these are all the different operations you can perform on these two numbers. That is, if I have the data, I can perform the some operations on that data. So the combination of this data and the operations, okay, this we will call as the object. Okay. So that is whatever the data I have, the data and the operation that we are able to perform on that data. That is, these are the limited operations that I can perform on the data. Okay. So some of the other operations may be there, okay, which we may not able to perform on this data. Say for example, concatenation of the strings. Okay, that you cannot perform on the numbers. Okay, you can perform the concatenation of a strings only on the character data. But I have only two numbers, so you can perform the any numerical operation on that data. Okay. So the data and the functions which are able to perform on the data will be combined into one single unit, okay, which is called as an object. Which is called as an object. Okay. So the object is can be easily defined as the combination of data and functions, or the combination of data and operations is called as an object. Okay. In a real world, if you want to understand the object, okay, you can take a say some, for example, a pen. Okay, pen. Okay, pen has the some data like color of the pen, company of the pen, and the softness of the pen and something. Okay, the ink, the color of the ink in the pen. Okay, those all are comes into the data. Okay, whenever you're coming to the functions, okay, how soft the pen is working, and how easy to write with that particular pen, or how difficulty to write with the pen. Okay, those all are the functionalities of that particular pen. Okay, okay, not only this, okay, each and every object in our real life, each and everything in our real life will have the data and functions. Okay, so that to work with that both the data and functions, okay, the programming unit which is represented as the object. Okay, so especially the object is nothing but is a combination of data and functions. Okay, the functions which are only able to perform on the data. Okay, so this is represented as data and methods. Methods is functions or operations or methods. All these are the similar words. Okay. And this is another object-oriented programming. We have a better advantage is we can create a reusable code. Okay, reusable code. Okay, that is nothing but whenever you are creating the functions, okay, whenever you are creating the functions related to the data, those functions can be used for more than once without writing them again. Okay, once you are created the functions and once you are created the data, okay, that can be used for more than once in different applications without recreating that. Okay, that is, it reduces the redundancy. Redundancy is nothing but repeated coding or repeated data declarations. Okay, that can be reduced with this object programming. Okay, and whatever the program we want to write, that program will be divided into the number of objects, and within that object we have number of functions. Okay, or we can call it as mini programs as functions. Okay, so we can divide our program into the number of the objects. Okay, say for example, I want to create a application for an organization. Assume that this is a school organization and you want to create an application for school. Okay, this is your program is school. Okay, your program is automated application for the school. Okay, school is nothing but we have the different types of information, that is different information related to the different members you need to be stored. Okay, one is the teachers in the school, students in the school, and office and staff in the school, and you need to store the students examinations data, and you need to store the students fees related data, and you need to store the library information. Okay, these all will be created as the objects. Okay, one object is created as the students, where we will store all the data related to the student, and the functionalities, that is the functions can be performed on that student data. And employee data, that is teachers data. Okay, and we will create an object as a teacher, and within that we will store all the data and functions that we can perform on the teacher's data. And marks of a student and the functions of the related to the marks. Okay, library object, okay, with the data of library books, and functions can be performed on the data. Okay, so each and every object will comes with the data and functions. Okay, so the total application is divided into the number of objects, and each object has its own data and its own functions. Okay, so one object will not interfere into the other object's data and functions. Okay, so that you can create the like a individual programs. Okay, you can create like a individual programs. Okay, okay, those the functions and data can communicate with each other. Okay, so the data can be easily accessed by the functions in that object, and functions can be easily accessed the total data items within that particular object. Okay, okay, this is related to the object. Next, I will see the differences between the object-oriented programming and procedural-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming, that is, previously we have seen what is mean by the object. Object-oriented programming is nothing but, okay, whenever you are writing a program by using these objects, then we can call it as object-oriented programming. Okay, that is the program which is created with the help of the objects. Okay, that is object-oriented programming. Okay, so for this we require the programming language which can support the objects. Okay, all the language will doesn't support the object-oriented programming. Okay, because whenever you want to combine the data and functions as a single unit, okay, you require one user-defined data type, okay, which can which can provide this type of a structure. Okay. So whenever you are going to the C language, we can combine the multiple data variables, but we cannot store the functions in the structure. Okay, we have a struct in the C language. Within that, we can store the variables of different data types, but we cannot store the functions. Okay, so C is not a object-oriented programming. But whenever you're coming to the other languages like C++, Java, Python, R language, okay, these all will support the object-oriented programming because we can create the user-defined data type with a combination of data and functions. So those languages we can call them as object-oriented programming languages. Okay. So the other languages before this or object-oriented programming, those are comes into the procedure-oriented or structured-oriented. Procedure or structure-oriented. Okay. Okay, why we are calling them as a structure oriented or procedure oriented is they are basically concentrating on the procedure of the programming, okay, not on the data of the program. So if for example I want to create a calculator application, okay, first we will decide what are the functions to be performed in the calculator. Okay, that is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, mod. Okay, if it is a scientific calculator, we need to perform the square root, log, trigonometric functions. These all we need to perform. So we are deciding what are the procedures to be followed. Okay. Then we will decide that what data is required for that procedures. Okay, what is required for the addition, what data is required for the subtraction, multiplication, division, like that. But whenever you are coming to the object-oriented programming, whenever you want to design a calculator, okay, first we will decide that how many numbers to be taken. That is how many data members are required for the calculator. Okay, first we will decide the data. Okay, then based on the data, what are the different operations you can perform on that data. Okay, that we will decide next. Okay, then we will create an object as a calculator, and within that we'll place the data and functions. Okay, that is the difference between the object-oriented programming and procedure-oriented. Object-oriented is first we will decide the data, then we will decide the functions. In the procedure-oriented, first we will decide the functionalities to be performed, then we will decide the data to be required. Okay. And easily we can call it as object-oriented programming as a bottom-up approach and this as the top-down. Okay, because we are starting from the functions and we are going to the data. Okay, that is from the broad area to the lower, smallest narrow area we are going. So first we are broadly classifying, broadly deciding the functionality. Then we are going splitting that and we are going to the data. But in the bottom-up approach, we will start from the data. Okay, that is data, and we will go to up to the functions. Okay, so data is called as a least unit. Okay, sorry, data is the least unit. Okay, from that we will go to the functionality. Okay, I will derive the functionality from the data in the object oriented programming, but in the case of a procedure oriented programming, I will derive the data from the functionality. Okay. And the next difference is program is divided into the objects, and here the program is divided into the functions. And in the object-oriented programming, we have the access modifiers in the object-oriented programming, which are called as public, private, and protected. Okay, these are used to provide the security to the data. So we can restrict the accessing of a data using this access specifiers, access modifiers. Okay, so that is whatever the data members you are data variables you are creating in the object. Okay, for those data variables you can specify the either public or private or protected. Okay, so that the data variable is only accessible in a limited area. Okay, so just like a global and local scope. Okay, but here it is somewhat different. Okay, but in the procedure oriented we don't have any access modifiers. Okay, and object-oriented programming is more secured than compared to the procedure oriented. It's a less secured. Okay, and in the object-oriented programming, to create the object, we'll use the data type. The user-defined data type is used as class, And in the procedure oriented, whenever you want to combine the multiple variables, I will use a struct. Okay, struct or record, okay, something like that. So next, okay, this is an example of a class. That is example in a object-oriented programming. Okay, say for example, I want to create a, I want to make a cake. Okay, I want to prepare a cake. Okay, so for the cake preparation, okay, I am considering this as a class. Okay, so assume that the cake preparation is a class. Okay, so the ingredients required for preparing a cake is the data. Okay, ingredients required to prepare the cake is the data. Okay, so I have the data first. I have to take the data first. Okay, to prepare the cake, I have to take the data first. Okay, strawberries, sugar, lemon juice, shells, cornstarch, water, vanilla, something. So these all we first collect and we will arrange them. Okay, then we will go for performing some operations or some functionality will perform to prepare the cake. Okay, so this is the functionality to be performed to prepare the cake. Okay, so we have different functions. Okay, first we need to cut all these things, and then we need to mix the starch and something, and then we will mix all these dry fruits into that whatever the thing which is prepared, and then we will fill the our shells. Okay, then we will bake. Okay, so this total process is divided into this number of functions, and those functions will access this data and will perform the functionality. Okay, so we can easily call this the cake preparation as a class which requires the data and also the functionality to be performed. So simply we can understand the class like this. Okay, object as like this. Okay, next. Okay, some of the examples of the classes. This is an example of a class is like account class, and there is another class is account holder and account class. Account holder, this is example classes of a bank. Okay, say for example the application is a bank. Okay, so there is a application bank. Okay, within that whenever we were going to the bank, we have a will open an account, and we become the account holder. Okay, మనం ఒక అకౌంట్ ఓపెన్ చేస్తాం, సో మన అకౌంట్ హోల్డర్స్ అవుతాం. సో ఫర్ అకౌంట్ వాట్ ఎవర్ ద information required, that is the attributes. Okay, and whatever the operations that you can perform on that account is the operations or functions. Okay, once you open the account, okay, you have the your name, that is holder name, holder details, number of the account, credit line, okay, and balance in the account, and the holder of the right of disposal, something. And the functionalities performed are depositing and withdrawal, transfer of the amount, and standing orders. Okay, these all are the different functionalities. As the same way in the account holder will have the information of account holder, the surname, prename, address, profession, birthday, something like that. Okay, whenever we are changing the residence information, or whenever you are changing a surname, or whenever you are changing the profession, then you need to do the some changes in this data. So those are called as the functions. Okay, next. Okay, next we will see the some of the words, some of the terminology that generally will use in the object-oriented programming. Okay, those terminologies are like class, class variable, data member. Okay, these all we will see, and not only these, we have another also. Okay, first we will see what is mean by the class. Okay, simply you just understand as class is a ADT, or we can call it as abstract data type or user defined data type. Class is a user defined data type. Okay, similar to the struct in the C language, user defined data type. So why we are using a class is especially to create the objects, okay, that is to combine the data and functions as a single unit. Okay, we require a data type. Okay, that data type is called as the class. Okay, so whenever you want to place the functions and variables into a one particular block, okay, the block should have the some name, okay, so that only we can access that block. Okay, so that block is called as a class. Okay, and this class has some name, and for that name it creates a data type. Okay, whenever you want to use that data type, we can create a variable for the data type and we can use it. Okay, so class is a user defined data type and this is used to create the objects. Okay, so blueprint. Okay, what is mean by the blueprint? Okay, blueprint is nothing but it's a format. Okay, or we can call it as a model. Okay, so say for example, whenever you are going to the any particular organization for the interview, okay, you'll be given a one resume form or a form to fill your details. Okay, that is until unless you are not filling the details, that form is only a format. Okay, that is a blueprint. Okay, once you fill that your details into the form, okay, then it becomes that is your form. Okay, that is your application. Okay, until unless you are not filling that application is common for all. Okay, once you fill the your data, then it becomes a your application. Okay, that is here the blueprint is nothing but the unfilled form. Okay, that is empty form. Okay, that is a class. Okay, once you fill the data, okay, then it becomes a your form, that is a one instance of that particular form or one date, that is it's related to only one particular data. Okay, that is called as the object. Okay, the empty form is only one, but whenever you fill that, okay, it becomes a number of instances or number of copies we will have. Okay, say if there are the 200 applicants are there for the particular particular job or particular place. Okay, if the 200 members are going to a particular company, okay, and all the 200 members will take the applications, so all have the same application, there is no change. But once they fill that application, then it gets the differences in that applications. Okay, there are the 200 different applications. As the same way, here we have the one class, but whenever you create the number of objects for the class or number of variables for the class and you are storing the data into that, okay, then it becomes a number of objects or number of copies. Okay, so until unless it has the blueprint, there is no data, there is no memory spaces allotted for the blueprint. Okay, there is no existence of that form. Okay, once you fill the data, then it gets the existence, and as the same way in the system also, once you store the data, then only it gets the existence and it gets the memory space. Okay, so Python uses the classes as the blueprints for creating of a new objects. Okay, we just understand as class as a data type. There is only one data type we have, but we can create n number of variables for the class. Okay, the variables are n number of variables for the data type. So class is a data type, object is a variable. So you have one class, but you can have n number of objects. Okay, and the next one is the class variable. Okay, this is the variable which is created within the class. Okay, the variable which is created in the class to store the data is called as the class variable. Okay, within the class properly, but outside of any of the class methods. Okay, so I will be specifying a variable within the class. That is also first we will create the variables within the class and then we will write the methods. Okay, just assume that class as a block. Sorry, class as like this. Okay, here the first part is for the variables. Okay, here we have the all the variables of the class. Okay, and here we have all the functions. Okay, So before the functions, we will define all the variables. Those are the class variables. Okay. And next, data member, okay, is also a variable. Okay, but this is called as data member, or it is also called as a instance variable also. Whenever you are creating a class, okay, we have only one set of variables. Okay, once you created the object for this class, we have multiple copies of these variables. Okay, those are called them as data members. Okay, say for example, here this is the student class. Assume that this is a student class, and I'm creating a student class. There are the three objects, S1, S2 and S3. So S1 student has one set of a data, so one set of a variables. S2 student has another set of a data, so another set of a variables. And S3 has another set of a data, so another set of a variables. So these variables are called as the data members. The variables in the objects of a class are called as the data members. Those can also be called as with another name as instance variables. Okay, instance variables, the variables within the objects are called as instance variables. Okay. Next. Okay. Instance of the class is the object created for the class is called as the instance. Okay, once you created a one variable for the class, then it is called as the instance of that particular class. Okay. So we can create as many instances or as many objects as required. We can create that many number of objects or instances. Okay, based on our requirement, we can create the n number of objects or n number of instances of a class. Okay. Okay, each object is a unique, and each object has its own copy of the class variables and functions. Okay, each object has one copy of the class. Okay, one copy of a class variables and functions. Okay, instance variable, this is similar. Okay, the variable within the object is called as the instance variable. Okay. So next, instantiation. This is the statement where you are creating an object of a class. Okay, that statement or that particular situation is called as the instantiation. Okay. Say for example, you are creating a variable for the student class. Okay. Class is already created, so you are creating an object for the student class. Say some stu space s1. Okay, assume that this is the variable creation. Okay, this statement is called as the instantiation. Okay, that is the process of creating an object for the class is called as the instantiation. Okay, that is the process or the statement where you are creating a object or instance of a class is called as the instantiation. Okay. So instance is object of a class. Instance variable is the variable within the object. Instantiation is the statement where you are creating the object of a class. Next. Okay, methods are nothing but the functions or operations that are specified within the class are the methods. Okay. So this methods which will perform the different operations related to the data, and we can define the n number of methods in a class. Okay, those will work on the data and those can perform the different operations on the data. And the data is only accessible by the methods. Okay. So generally we'll restrict the data to be accessible only by the methods of the class. Okay, so that only we'll call the object-oriented programming as more secure compared to the other programming languages. Okay, because the data is accessible by the methods of the class. Okay. And object, okay, is a variable or instance of a class. Okay, that can be accessed by the access the data of the class, and that can store the information into the variables. Okay, these are the important terms that you need to remember: object, method, instance variable, instantiation, class variable, data member. Okay, this is all you need to remember whenever you are whenever you are learning the object-oriented programming. Okay, these all need to be remembered. Okay, because we will use these terms in the whenever we are discussing the topics of the object-oriented programming. Okay. Okay, next we will see the features of the object-oriented programming. Okay, just once listen these all features whenever we are getting into the programming. Okay, then you can really understand these all features. Okay. Okay, the first feature of the object-oriented programming is overloading. Okay, function overloading. Okay, so this is generally we know that the name overloading is nothing but adding the more functionality to the same person, or something like allotting a more duties to the a particular person will call as a overloading. That is a load only, but we are making a more functionality or more work is allotted to the person, so we can call it as the overload. So as the same way here in the programming, function overloading is nothing but actually the function will already the function has some task, and apart from that we are adding some more tasks to the same function. Okay, that is for the same name of the function you are adding more tasks or more work you are allotting to the same function. Okay, but irrespective of adding in the same function, we will write the different functions with the same name, and we can add the more work to the function. Okay, so similarly like this one, say for example I have a function is sum. Okay, the function is sum, and which has the function to add the two numbers a and b. Okay, and I want to overload this function, that is I want to make this same function name to be worked with three variables, Okay, that is the function name is same, but you are adding a three variables in the function parameter as a function parameters, so that whenever you are using these function, you can pass the two numbers to call the two variables function 10 comma 2, okay, which will call the first function with the two variables, and you can call the another function with the three variables, okay, which will call the second function 5 2 3. Okay, it will call the second function. Okay, that is your whenever you are seeing this, okay, you will be assumed that the same function is working with two types of two different number of arguments, but actually within the internally the two functions are created. Okay, one is written with the two variables and another is written with the three variables, and another can be created with the two strings, or another can be created with another two different types of values. Like you can write a sum function to add the two lists or two dictionaries or any other two other variables. That is, you are increasing the load on the same name of the function. Okay, that is, you are allotting a more tasks to the same name of the function. Okay. The advantage of this is the learner can remember only few function names. Okay, say for example with the same function name, if you are creating a 10 different tasks, 10 different types of sums, okay, then for all the 10 different types of sums you can remember only one function name that has a sum. But if you have the different function names for the 10 different tasks, you need to remember all the 10 function names. Okay. So this function overloading has advantages. It reduces the number of function names to be remembered by the user. Okay. Okay, that is especially the advantage of this function overloading. Okay. To provide the flexibility, the function can work with the application same, so that you can remember only one function name for the different types of data. Okay. Next feature is inheritance. Okay, inheritance is nothing but generally called as like parent and child. Okay, so whenever a child is there, the child has the properties of the parents. Okay, properties is nothing but the characteristics of the parents will be derived by the child. Okay, something like face related or behavior related characteristics will be derived by the child from the parents. Okay, as the same way, in the programming languages, okay, we have the existing class which is called as the parent class, and we'll create a new class which is called as the child class. Okay, say for example, I have a class with the name of employee EMP, okay, and which has some data members, which has some variables, and which has some functions. And from this, I'm creating a new class, okay, as say for example, a part-time employee, as part-time employee. Okay, for this part-time employee, I require some additional data. That is, apart from the regular employee data, I require the number of hours the employees work and the hourly pay of the employee. Okay, that too has to be added to the part-time employee. Okay, for the all other employees will have the same data. Only for the part-time employee, I require the different two data items. That is, number of hours and hourly pay. Okay. So now we can call this part-time employee as the child class and employee as the parent class, because this part-time employee class will use all the data of the employee class, and additionally it has two other variables. Okay. So child also uses the all the like this. Okay, we have a account is a main class, and we can have two other different types of accounts, savings account and gyro account. Okay, this all data is used by the savings account class and also by the gyro account class. Additionally, it has another data members. Okay, so this is called as the inheritance. Okay. And we have some
Ma'am,
other
time
features.
completed.
Hmm. Remaining features we will cover in the next class. This go through these all concepts. Say concepts and ఒకసారి check చేయండి. Okay, because you may be forgot by the next class, so that ఒకసారి check చేసుకుంటే then we will go for the remaining concepts and programming in the next class. Okay. Now you can leave from the class.